The plasma cuffs sparked against Princess Lyra's wrists as the Corvani guards dragged her through the obsidian corridors of the Human Coalition's flagship. Her silver hair hung in matted strands, violet blood trickling from the neural dampener embedded behind her left ear. The device pulsed with cruel efficiency, severing her connection to the telepathic network that had guided her people for millennia. Queen Elena Vasquez stood motionless in the throne room's center, her weathered hands clasped behind her back. The Human Coalition's most decorated admiral had faced down 3 galactic wars, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Before her, on a ceremonial hover platform, lay Princess Kira, Lyra's younger sister, encased in a stasis field that flickered between life and death. "Your Majesty," Admiral Chen's voice cut through the silence. "The Corvani delegation demands an immediate response to their gift." Elena's jaw tightened. Gift. The word tasted like ash. The Corvani Empire had captured both princesses during the siege of Theta Prime, but they'd only returned one alive. Kira's body showed signs of experimental neural grafting, illegal technology that could theoretically transfer consciousness between compatible species. "They want Princess Lyra to choose," Elena said, her voice steady despite the storm building in her chest. "Her sister's life, or her own." The throne room doors hissed open. Lyra stumbled forward, her guards maintaining perfect formation despite the weight of what they were witnessing. The neural dampener had aged her decades in mere hours, her once proud bearing reduced to trembling exhaustion. "Human queen." Lyra's voice cracked as she struggled to focus. They told me you would understand." Elena stepped closer, studying the princess's face. The Corvani had chosen their weapon carefully. Lyra possessed the rare genetic markers that made cross-species neural transfer possible. Her sister did not. "The stasis field will fail in 6 hours," Admiral Chen reported. "If we attempt to remove the grafting apparatus, Princess Kira dies. If we leave it, she becomes a vessel," Elena finished. "A living computer for Corvani consciousness." Lyra fell to her knees, the plasma cuff shorting against the deck plating. "Please. They said humans value choice above all else. Let me save her." The neural transfer would kill Lyra instantly, but her consciousness could theoretically preserve Kira's failing neural pathways. One princess would die, one would live forever, changed. Both outcomes served Corvani interests perfectly. Elena looked at the readouts surrounding Kira's stasis field. Brain activity fluctuated wildly as the experimental graphs fought against her natural neural architecture. The princess was dying by degrees, each pulse of foreign technology eating away at her essential self. "Your Majesty," Commander Torres approached with careful steps, "the Corvani ambassador awaits your decision." "No," Elena said quietly. "They await Princess Lyra's decision." She knelt beside the captured princess, close enough to see the desperation etched into every line of her face. The neural dampener had stolen Lyra's telepathic gifts, but it couldn't touch the fierce love that burned in her eyes when she looked at her sister. "What would Kira choose?" Elena asked. Lyra's breath caught. She would never forgive me for sacrificing myself." "And what would you choose if the positions were reversed?" "The same thing." Lyra's voice strengthened slightly. "We are bonded soul to soul." Neither could live knowing the other died for her. Elena rose, her decision crystallizing with shocking clarity. The Corvani had offered a false choice, sacrifice disguised as mercy. But humans had built an empire on finding third options, where others saw only binary outcomes. "Admiral Chen," she commanded, "prepare the neural synchronization chamber." "Ma'am, if consciousness can be transferred between species, it can be shared." Elena's eyes never left the dying princess in her stasis field. "We're going to give both sisters what they want." Lyra struggled to her feet, hope and terror warring across her features. "That's impossible. The technology doesn't exist in Corvani space," Elena corrected. "But this is a human ship." She gestured to the hidden panels that slid away from the throne room walls, revealing the most advanced neural research facility in the known galaxy. Human scientists had spent decades perfecting consciousness preservation, not for conquest, but for the day when death itself could be conquered. "You're offering to save us both?" Lyra whispered. Elena's smile held no warmth, only the cold calculation of a strategist who had found her enemy's weakness. I'm offering to turn their weapon into our victory. The plasma cuffs fell away from Lyra's wrists as medical teams swarmed into the chamber. Elena watched the princess run to her sister's side, pressing her hands against the stasis field that separated them. The Corvani had given Elena a choice. Now she would return the favor. The neural synchronization chamber hummed to life as technicians prepared both sisters for the most dangerous procedure ever attempted. Lyra lay in the primary pod, her neural dampener finally removed, while Kira's stasis field flickered in the secondary chamber. Dr. Sarah Kim adjusted the consciousness transfer matrices with steady hands despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Synchronization at 30%, she reported. Princess Lyra's neural patterns are stabilizing. Elena stood at the observation window watching as her chief science officer worked miracles with technology the Corvani couldn't comprehend. Unlike the crude neural grafting that was killing Kira, human consciousness preservation focused on harmony rather than domination. The Corvani implants are fighting the process, Dr. Kim warned. If we can't integrate them smoothly, we will, Elena said with absolute certainty. Begin Phase 2. In the primary chamber, Lyra's eyes snapped open as her telepathic abilities returned in a flood of sensation. She could feel Kira's presence across the connection. Weak, fragmented, but undeniably alive beneath the layers of foreign technology. Sister, Lyra whispered, reaching across dimensions of thought and memory. I'm here. The synchronization rate jumped to 50% as their minds touched for the first time since the capture. Kira's response came as pure emotion, relief, love, and desperate hope transmitted through pathways that transcended physical boundaries. Your Majesty, Admiral Chen's voice carried an edge of urgency. The Corvani ambassador is demanding access to the chamber. He claims we're violating the terms of their gift. Elena's smile turned predatory. Tell him he's welcome to observe from the viewing chamber under full security escort. The ambassador arrived within minutes, a tall, reptilian figure whose scales shifted color with emotional state. Currently, they displayed the deep crimson of barely contained rage. This was not the agreement, he hissed through his translator. One princess dies, one lives. You cannot alter the terms. I'm not altering anything, Elena replied calmly. Princess Lyra chose to save her sister. I'm simply using human methods to honor that choice. Synchronization at 70%, Dr. Kim announced. Neural integration proceeding within acceptable parameters. The ambassador's scales flared brighter red. You will destroy them both with this primitive experiment. Perhaps, Elena acknowledged. But that remains their choice to make. In the chamber, both sisters' vital signs synchronized as their consciousness patterns merged and separated in carefully controlled waves. The Corvani neural grafts, designed to dominate and replace, found themselves absorbed into a larger tapestry of shared thought and memory. Lyra felt Kira's memories of captivity, the pain, the fear, the unbreakable hope that someone would come for them. In return, she shared her own determination, her fury at the injustices they'd endured, her absolute refusal to let either of them face this alone. Synchronization at 90%, Dr. Kim called out. Approaching critical threshold. The ambassador stepped closer to the observation window, his translator crackling with interference from the neural fields. If you succeed, the Empire will consider this an act of war. Elena finally turned to face him directly. If we succeed, your empire will learn that humans don't accept impossible choices. We create new possibilities. The synchronization chamber erupted in brilliant white light as both consciousness patterns achieved perfect harmony. For a moment that stretched beyond time, Lyra and Kira existed as a single entity, two souls sharing one purpose, one unbreakable bond forged stronger than any weapon the Corvani Empire could devise. Then the light faded and both princesses opened their eyes simultaneously. Status report, Elena demanded. Dr. Kim's voice rang with triumph. Neural synchronization complete. Both consciousness patterns stable and integrated. The Corvani implants have been repurposed. The ambassador's scales shifted to a sick yellow, the color of fear among his species. Impossible. The neural transfer technology requires a sacrifice. It cannot sustain two minds. Your technology can't, Elena corrected. Ours can. She watched as both sisters sat up in their chambers, their movements perfectly synchronized despite occupying separate bodies. They looked at each other through the transparent barriers and smiled, an expression that contained depths of shared experience no outsider could fathom. "The choice has been made," Elena announced. "Both princesses will return to their people, whole, healed, and bonded beyond anything your empire can break." The ambassador backed away from the window, his scales now cycling through rapid patterns of confusion and defeat. The Corvani had given the humans what they thought was an impossible choice. Instead, they'd provided the key to their own strategic downfall. Elena pressed the communication panel. "Admiral Chen, please escort our guest back to his shuttle. His gift has been accepted." Princess Lyra emerged from the synchronization chamber first, her movements fluid and confident despite everything she'd endured. The neural dampener's effects had been completely reversed, her telepathic abilities now enhanced by the integration process. She could feel not only Kira's presence but also the emotional resonances of every human in the facility, their determination, their hope, their absolute refusal to bow to impossible demands. Kira followed moments later, her vital signs strong for the first time since the rescue. The Corvani neural graph still remained in her brain, but they no longer fought against her natural patterns. Instead, they'd been transformed into something entirely new, a bridge between her consciousness and her sister's that transcended physical distance. "How do you feel?" Dr. Kim asked, running final diagnostics on both princesses. Kira answered first, her voice steady and clear. "Complete. For the first time since our capture, I feel complete," Lyra nodded, pressing her hand against the barrier that separated their chambers. Kira mirrored the gesture, and Elena could see the neural synchronization display spike as their consciousness patterns aligned perfectly. "The Corvani ambassador has departed," Admiral Chen reported as he returned to the chamber. His final transmission was colorful. "I imagine so," Elena replied. "Dr. Kim, what are the long-term implications of the neural integration?" The chief science officer consulted her readings with obvious excitement. "Unprecedented, Your Majesty. The sisters now share not just telepathic communication, but emotional resonance, memory access, and enhanced cognitive processing. They've become something entirely new." Elena studied both princesses carefully. The Corvani had intended to create a weapon, one consciousness enslaved to serve another. Instead, they'd provided the template for evolution itself. "Can it be replicated?" she asked quietly. Dr. Kim's expression grew thoughtful. "Theoretically, yes, but it would require willing participants with compatible neural architectures and an existing emotional bond. The process builds on love, not domination. A concept completely alien to Corvani thinking," Elena realized. Their empire conquered through fear and subjugation, never understanding that true strength came from unity freely chosen. "Your Majesty," Lyra called out as the chamber barriers retracted. "We need to speak with you, privately." Elena dismissed her staff with a gesture, leaving only herself and the two princesses in the vast neural research facility. Both sisters approached her with synchronized steps, their movements now perfectly coordinated without conscious effort. "The integration process revealed something," Kira began. "Something the Corvani never intended us to discover," Lyra continued seamlessly. Elena waited, recognizing the careful way they were choosing their words. Whatever they'd learned during the consciousness merger, it was significant enough to make even royalty proceed with caution. "The neural grafting technology," Kira said. "It wasn't designed for consciousness transfer. It was designed for consciousness theft," Lyra finished. "The Corvani have been harvesting the minds of conquered species for centuries." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. An entire empire built on the systematic enslavement of consciousness itself. Millions of beings reduced to living vessels for Corvani thoughts and memories. "How many?" she asked quietly. Both princesses exchanged a look that carried volumes of shared knowledge. "Entire species," they said in unison. "The Zephyrians. The Altarian Collective. The Moss Singers of Verdania. All of them still exist as trapped consciousness patterns within Corvani neural networks." Elena's hands clenched into fists as the full scope of the atrocity became clear. The galaxy had mourned dozens of vanished civilizations, never realizing they were still alive, imprisoned in their own bodies while alien minds controlled their actions. "Can they be freed?" she demanded. Yes, Lyra said firmly. The integration process showed us how their technology functions. We can reverse it. We can liberate every stolen consciousness in their empire, Kira added. But it would mean war. Elena's smile returned, cold and calculating. It means war anyway. The Kurvani made sure of that the moment they chose to give me an impossible choice. She walked to the chamber's central console, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she accessed the Coalition's deepest strategic protocols. The Corvani Empire had ruled through fear for too long, believing their neural theft technology made them invincible. They were about to learn the difference between conquering consciousness and sharing it freely. Admiral Chen, she called over the comm system. Prepare the fleet for immediate departure, full battle readiness. Destination, Your Majesty. Elena looked at both princesses, seeing in their synchronized expressions the same determination that had built the human coalition from scattered colonies into a galactic power. The Corvani homeworld, she announced, were returning their gift in person. The neural research facility fell silent except for the hum of consciousness preservation equipment, technology that would soon free an entire galaxy from the Empire's grip. The Corvani had offered Elena a choice between sacrificing one princess or losing both. Instead, she'd gained two perfect weapons against tyranny itself. The War Council assembled within hours, holographic displays showing the full scope of Corvani space spread across the strategic chamber like a three-dimensional web of oppression. Princess Lyra and Princess Kira stood at opposite ends of the massive table, their neural link allowing them to process tactical data from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Intelligence estimates placed the Corvani fleet strength at 12,000 vessels, General Morrison reported, his scarred face grim with the weight of numbers. Our combined forces total 8,000. Elena studied the display, watching as both princesses highlighted weak points in enemy formations with perfect coordination. Their shared consciousness gave them an analytical advantage no single military mind could match. Numbers aren't everything, General, she replied. Show them the neural facility locations. The hologram shifted, revealing installations scattered across every major Corvani world. Each facility represented millions of stolen consciousness patterns, entire civilizations reduced to enslaved thought processors. Every facility we liberate gives us new allies, Elena continued. Species that have been fighting the Empire from within for generations. Admiral Chen leaned forward, his expression skeptical. Your Majesty, even if we could free these consciousness patterns, how do we know they'll fight alongside us? Many have been imprisoned for centuries. Kira spoke for the first time, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with her sister's neural patterns. Because we've spoken with them. The War Council fell silent. Elena felt her pulse quicken as the implications became clear. During the integration process, Lyra explained, we accessed fragments of the Corvani neural network. The consciousness theft technology creates quantum entanglement between all connected minds. We can communicate with every enslaved species simultaneously, Kira added. They're already preparing for liberation. Elena's strategic mind raced through possibilities, a coordinated uprising from within, supported by external military pressure. It was the kind of multi-front war that had crushed empires throughout history. What do they need from us? She asked. Both princesses smiled, their expressions perfectly synchronized. Time and a signal. The next 8 hours transformed the Coalition flagship into the nerve center of the largest military operation in galactic history. Princess Lyra worked directly with naval intelligence, her enhanced telepathic abilities allowing her to coordinate with resistance cells across Corvani space without triggering their monitoring systems. Meanwhile, Princess Kira collaborated with Dr. Kim to weaponize the consciousness liberation technology. If they could penetrate the Empire's neural networks directly, they could free millions of minds in moments. Elena moved between both teams, marveling at how seamlessly the sisters divided their attention while maintaining constant neural contact. The Corvani had created the perfect weapon against themselves. Two minds that could think as one while acting independently. Fleet status report, she called out. All vessels ready for jump, Admiral Chen replied. The Azurian Confederation has committed their entire navy. The Centauri Republic is sending 4 battle groups. Even the independent worlds have pledged support.
Elena nodded grimly.
Word of the Corvani's consciousness theft had spread through diplomatic channels like wildfire. Every species in the galaxy now understood they faced not just conquest, but complete erasure of identity. Your Majesty, Dr. Kim approached with a handheld device that pulsed with soft blue light. The liberation transmitter is ready. Princess Kira's neural patterns provided the exact frequency needed to break Corvani control protocols. Elena took the device, feeling its weight like a physical representation of hope itself. Billions of enslaved minds waited for the signal that would restore their freedom. "Princesses," she called out. Both sisters turned toward her with synchronized movements, their eyes bright with shared determination. How long after activation before the Empire realizes what's happening? 17 minutes, they replied in unison. The network will cascade, but they'll maintain control over core military systems until we physically disable them. 17 minutes to free an entire galaxy. Elena had faced impossible odds before, but never with stakes this high. "All stations, prepare for quantum jump," she ordered. "Target, Corvani Prime. Operation Liberation begins now." The Coalition fleet materialized in the heart of enemy space like an avenging angel, 1,200 ships appearing simultaneously across multiple vector approaches. The Corvani homeworld hung before them, a massive planet wrapped in orbital defense networks that had never been breached. "Enemy fleet responding," Admiral Chen reported. 6,000 vessels moving to intercept. Elena stood at the command center's heart, the liberation transmitter in her hands. Around her, both princesses took their positions at tactical stations, their neural link already reaching out to enslaved minds across the planet below. "Defense grid powering up," Commander Torres warned. "Planetary cannon systems charging." Elena watched the tactical displays as Corvani forces arranged themselves in perfect defensive formations. They fought with mechanical precision, every movement coordinated through their consciousness theft network. It was also their greatest weakness. "Activate the transmitter," Elena commanded. The device erupted in brilliant light, sending its liberation frequency across every quantum entanglement channel the Corvani had ever created. For 17 minutes, it would burn through their neural networks like cleansing fire. On the planet below, millions of stolen minds suddenly remembered who they were. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Empire. Firing. As Zephyrian consciousness patterns regained control of their own bodies, Corvani warships began attacking each other as freed Altarian minds turned their weapons against their former captors. "Network cascade at 60%, Princess Lyra reported, her voice tight with strain as she maintained connections across light years of space. "The liberation is spreading faster than projected, military resistance collapsing on 12 worlds," Princess Kira added. "Enslaved populations are taking control of orbital installations." Elena watched the tactical display transform as entire sectors of Corvani space erupted in simultaneous revolts. The Empire's greatest strength, their unified neural network, had become the instrument of their destruction. "Enemy flagship moving to engage," Admiral Chen announced. "Emperor Vex is aboard." Elena's smile turned predatory. The Corvani Emperor commanded from the largest dreadnought in their fleet, its neural control center containing consciousness patterns stolen from 100 species. If they could penetrate that ship's defenses, they could free the Empire's most powerful slaves. "All battle groups, focus fire on the Imperial flagship," she ordered. "Princesses, can you reach the minds aboard that vessel?" Both sisters closed their eyes, their neural patterns synchronizing into deeper connection than ever before. Elena watched their vital signs spike as they pushed their enhanced abilities to the absolute limit. "Yes," they whispered together. "We can hear them. They're ready." The liberation of the Corvani Empire reached its climax as coalition forces surrounded the Imperial flagship. Elena stood on the bridge, watching enemy resistance crumble as enslaved consciousness patterns broke free across their entire civilization. Through the quantum entanglement network, Princess Lyra and Princess Kira had touched every stolen mind in the Empire, sharing the liberation frequency that restored their true identities. The consciousness theft technology that had built Corvani power now carried the signal of their freedom. "Emperor Vex is requesting parley," Admiral Chen reported, his voice carrying obvious disbelief. His flagship has stopped all aggressive actions. Elena nodded slowly. The final phase of Operation Liberation was about to begin, not with the destruction of the Empire, but with its complete transformation. Open a channel, she commanded, but maintain battle readiness. The main display flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the Corvani dreadnought in chaos. Emperor Vex himself stood at its center, his scales cycling through rapid color changes as he struggled to maintain control over a crew whose minds were no longer his to command. "Human Queen," he hissed, his translator crackling with interference from the liberation signals. "What have you done?" "I gave you exactly what you gave me," Elena replied calmly. "A choice." Around the Emperor, Corvani personnel moved with confused, jerky motions as enslaved consciousness patterns wrestled for control of their own bodies. The neural theft technology that had sustained the Empire for centuries was turning against its creators. "The network is destabilizing," Princess Lyra reported quietly. "Enslaved minds are overwhelming Corvani control patterns throughout their space." Elena watched the tactical displays as world after world fell to internal revolution. The Empire's greatest fear, losing control of their stolen workforce, was becoming reality on a galactic scale. "You cannot sustain this," Emperor Vex snarled. "The liberation frequency will burn out within hours. When it does, we will reclaim every consciousness we have harvested." "No," Elena said firmly, "you won't." She gestured to both princesses, who stepped forward with synchronized movements. Their Neuralink now extended across the entire quantum entanglement network, touching every freed mind in Corvani space. "The liberation isn't temporary," Princess Kira explained. "Every consciousness we've freed now carries the frequency within their own neural patterns." "They've become permanent transmitters," Princess Lyra added. "The signal will continue spreading, freeing every enslaved mind it touches." Emperor Vex's scales shifted to the deep black of despair as understanding dawned. The consciousness theft technology that had built his empire would now ensure its complete dismantlement. Every stolen mind would become a beacon of freedom, spreading liberation to others until none remained enslaved. "Impossible," he whispered. "The network cannot function without central control." "Corvani networks can't," Elena acknowledged, "but human technology was designed for independence, not domination." She activated her personal communicator, addressing the Coalition fleet and every freed consciousness listening across the quantum channels. "This is Queen Elena Vasquez of the Human Coalition." Her voice carried across light years of space, reaching billions of newly liberated minds. "The age of consciousness theft is over. Every stolen identity will be restored. Every enslaved species will reclaim their worlds. And every tyrant who built power on the enslavement of minds will face justice." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across Corvani space, freed populations rose in coordinated revolt, their movements guided by shared consciousness networks that no empire could control or corrupt. "Your Majesty," a new voice broke through the communication chaos. It carried the harmonic frequencies of the long-lost Zephyrian species. "We are in your debt. Our people have been enslaved for 800 years, as have ours," added an Altarian consciousness pattern. 2,000 years of imprisonment broken in a single day. Elena felt tears gathering in her eyes as dozens of extinct civilizations spoke through the quantum channels, their voices carrying the weight of centuries of suffering finally transformed into hope. "Emperor Vex," she addressed the Corvani leader directly, "your empire is finished, but your people don't have to be. Release all remaining consciousness theft technology. Surrender unconditionally. And I'll ensure the Corvani species survives to build something better." The Emperor's scales had gone completely gray, the color of defeat among his kind. Around him, his own crew moved with the stuttering uncertainty of minds no longer sure which thoughts were their own. "And if I refuse?" he asked quietly. Elena's expression hardened. "Then your species joins the list of those you've enslaved. Every Corvani consciousness gets absorbed into our liberation network and your civilization disappears forever." It wasn't an empty threat. Both princesses possessed the neural patterns necessary to reverse the consciousness theft process completely. They could turn the Empire's own technology against its creators, reducing the Corvani to scattered patterns in other species' minds. Choose wisely, Elena added. You have exactly as long as you gave my princesses. Emperor Vex looked around his bridge one final time, at the chaos of his failing empire, at the enslaved minds breaking free from his control, at the coalition fleet that surrounded his flagship like an iron fist of judgment. I surrender, he said quietly, unconditionally. The words echoed across every quantum channel in the network, reaching billions of newly freed consciousness patterns throughout the galaxy. The Corvani Empire, built on stolen minds and enslaved thoughts, officially ceased to exist. Elena deactivated the Liberation Transmitter, its work complete. Around her, the Coalition Bridge erupted in cheers as species across the galaxy celebrated their freedom. Princess Lyra and Princess Kira stood together, their neural link finally at peace now that their impossible choice had transformed into universal liberation. The galaxy is free, Elena announced, her words carrying across every communication channel to reach the growing network of liberated consciousness patterns, and it will stay that way. The war was over. But the age of true unity, minds choosing to connect rather than being forced together, was just beginning.